Hey guys, so excited to welcome you to the podcast today. Walter and I were just chatting a little bit before you joined us, and I think we have some really cool and exciting stuff. We got a lot in common, and just really excited to bring you guys Walter Larkins today, who he's really taken someone, he's taken on some of the most broken, bureaucratic, and outdated parts of the healthcare system and really working towards helping providers and organizations really fix them. That's one of the things about AI is it really, and we'll talk more about this, that there really is so much benefit in the healthcare space. So Walter is in, correct me if I position you incorrectly, but the co-founder of Sapphire Healthcare AI, a company that's using AI and modern automation to really radically improve the way that healthcare, revenue cycle management, but really it's much broader than that, works. And I was so impressed with your background. It just spans tech and entrepreneurship and innovation. And really now that you're applying that to healthcare as a physician is music to my ears. So welcome to the podcast, Walter.
Michael, appreciate the invite and looking forward to our discussion.
So let's go back a little bit. I know you guys have been around a few years now. Back to the early days of launching Sapphire. What was happening at that time? Probably is still happening. At that made you feel like you this was something you needed to do.
That's a great question. I've been in the revenue cycle side for many years, and that was really an accident. Like most things in life, sort of something happens and you end up doing it. Just a little bit earlier, I used to work for a J&J startup called Epic Continuity
Okay,
Surgery, which you know created a whole new market that really didn't exist. And the thing that I really enjoyed about that particular business was the fact that it was very patient centric. It's the first time in medicine, really, that the patient had any input on what kind of surgery they're going to have.
interesting.
So, so I thought that was, and I came before that was from Coca-Cola. So I was always consumer, patient, oriented, and thought that the patient should be, the priority. But there are a lot of things that shift the
Right.
priority away from the patient. So that market obviously grew and it's exciting. And I had this brilliant idea, I thought at the time, but at the time it was pretty a crazy idea that you could do minimally invasive heart surgery. And of course, big companies are the birthplace of startups. You always hear the negative things from your boss saying, look, Walter, you're doing a great job. We just want you to do what we do. Okay, just focus on that. And we're going to be happy with you. And
Right.
so most entrepreneurs like bail because of that narrative they just can't handle.
Yeah.
So they leave.
Hmm.
Uh, but in that process of leaving, we had a situation that most sales guys, and by the time I left, I was director of professional education, glorified sales, worked with doctors and sales reps developing this new technology. But uh, I went as a sales rep, I actually had to go to a hospital and say, hey, why aren't you paying our bill? The worst conversation you want to have. And the
Right.
purchasing manager said, look, Walter, we're having really problems with these insurance companies. They're not paying their bill. That was the first time I heard something that, wow, insurance hospitals are having issues getting paid from the insurance company. And then when I left J&J after I sold my minimally invasive heart surgery company, which is another story, um, that stuck in my mind. I said, wow, this must be a big problem. And I just wanted to understand, what it was. And I started a company called CDR. And its mission was essentially why go after the patient when the insurance company has the money? And uh,
Yeah.
and and the problem reason why you go after the patient is the insurance companies are really good at not paying. Uh,
Right.
and there's a lot of stories and legend about why that is. Uh, but what we attempted to do, and this is a number of years ago, we're kind of ahead of our time in a lot of ways. Not because I wanted to be doing this stuff, it's because I found out I had to. I was doing the things that hospitals, the way they did it. This is my naive perception was that if I can just do it cheaper and better than the hospital staff, then we'd be good. And what I found out was that we were equally bad as they were. There's something about the insurance companies and how they deal with things that's made it so hard. And that's when I, kind of went on, it's sort of like a testing to see what is the motivation? What's the business model of hospitals? I mean, the insurance companies that creates this dynamic of adversity between the provider and the payer. Why is it so negative? And why is it so hard? Does this get simply your bill paid? And the unique thing about the healthcare business is that the insurance company is your customer, and they also control the patient, and they control the payment.
Right.
There's no other business on earth that is like that. So,
It's so
so the business,
true.
so the business model really doesn't make sense. If you really look at it. It puts the hospital in a very bad negotiating position with the
Hmm.
with the insurance companies, and so it's really not level. So we said, what would get the insurance company sort of attention? And we really focused on uh, not so much denials, because denials, you have to argue about. Okay, we want to see, uh, and as you know, there's many contracts that hospitals have with insurance companies. We wanted to see if they were actually paying correctly for the contract. Let's start there. Okay,
Okay.
and that was where there's no argument. You have a contract, and they're supposed to pay. They already paid something. Uh, so let's see if that is something that we can put our teeth into. And what we found out was that, man, the the difference between what they should pay and what they do pay is obviously an issue in terms of the billed amount
Yeah.
versus your position. I'm talking about billed amount versus what the insurance companies are paid. But the hospitals were basing what they should be paid as a percentage of the billed charges. And I said, wow, that's an odd way
Yeah.
of, looking at things. And so if across your entire, enterprise, if you look at your AR, if they pay you on average 20% of bill charges, or 25% of bill charges, you're good. Okay, that's your metric. But wow, that's a pretty broad statement, and it doesn't have any impact when you're trying to negotiate with insurance companies, because they want to know exactly what
Right.
we should be paying. So that's what we did. Um, we designed a system uh, that first aggregated all the data from the contract, turned it into a algorithm, and then we looked at all the bills and then all the financial information, and we wanted to see, how pervasive this kind of behavior was. Is it something that's sort of incidental, and how bad is it? And so what we found out was that really between 2 and 10% of revenue leakage, on that piece, the underpayments and the late payments, across all entities. And we were fortunate; we had a number of clients, and they gave us access to everything. So we saw, from the primary
Right.
care physician billing all the way through the continuum of care to surgery centers and then the hospital, of course. And it was astounding. But okay, now that's a problem. Okay, what are you going to do about it? That's the thing. So we let the CFO know how bad the problem was, and he knew it. And all these CFOs actually do know that's the problem, but the cost of trying to figure it out is so high that they
Right.
focus on the low hanging fruit, which is denial. And the low hanging fruit is not denial, because you got to spend a lot of time and effort dealing with that. So what we did, we started looking at behavior, and the behavior we're looking
Mm.
at includes underpayments, late payments, and also denial. And when you look at things from that perspective, from a behavior perspective, like maybe this is a business practice, for example, we wanted to see if it was. And not all insurance companies are engaged in these practices, but there's a pretty significant number that do, and maybe it isn't intentional. Um, However, we provided evidence that uh, there seemed to be a certain degree of intentionality, and we uh, provided that information to insurance companies. We have a proprietary process that does that. So we do a massive bill review, and then we do a massive appeal. That's all automated. Even back then, we used automation in there. And the insurance company's behavior changed because we weren't dealing with adjusters on a claim
Mhm.
by claim basis. We were leveraging massive amounts of data across multiple different provider entities, and we were able to get the attention of insurance companies at a very high level, and we negotiated in bulk. So that was including penalties and interest. So that's the piece that is embedded in every single contract. And these insurance companies think they don't have to pay it. It's incredible. So we've heard adjusters say, "Oh, we don't pay that." I mean, it's not even a choice. You've got to pay it. Here it is in black and white. You have to pay. So that's how we really started. It was we always consider ourselves a big data analytics company, uh, and we use that data evidence as a way of really leveling the playing field between the provider and the insurance company, because data is what the thing is. In fact, many of the insurance companies don't know what they're supposed to pay. So so
That's pretty
so
bad
it's
right
going to be a
there.
big problem across the board. I mean, really. But once you show them that you've got the calculations on how to, how that you came up with that number, it really does change the dynamic of your relationship with the payer. Now, does that mean they're going to just change their behavior to every provider? No, only the ones that have a relationship with a company like
Right.
ours. It's purely a contingency. So our success, our goals as a company were aligned with the hospital's goals. We wouldn't make any money until the hospital, and that's how I started. I mean, that's really we had that business for a good chunk of years, and by the time you know things started getting really bad for hospitals, I said, hospitals are going to go out of business. And back in 2018, the CBO said, uh, Congressional Budget Office said, look, if hospitals don't improve revenue and improve operating efficiencies, they're going to be out of
Yeah.
business. I mean, you're talking about some outrageously crazy number, like 60, 70%. And that was in 2018. And what's happening? Boom. Okay, that's what's happening right now, especially rural hospitals as well. Most
Hmm.
hospitals have negative revenue and net margin on their operations, and that's a bad thing. So I said, no one knows when they're going to get hurt. Okay, you're on vacation, and you're going to be on vacation. You're going to be injured. It's going to be on vacation. The hospital's going to be in a rural area. You're going to have to, go some long distance to get to the hospital that might still be open. And I felt that if hospitals had our system, that uh, they'd be more successful and be able to focus on patient care instead of the challenges they're dealing with now. And that's really how Sapphire was really born. I just felt that if hospitals had our software, this problem would be eliminated. At least that part of it. There are other problems we
Right.
could talk about later, but at least that part would be.
So hospitals are your client, not the providers,
Mainly
but really more the
hospital,
hospital.
integrated healthcare networks. We've worked with surgery centers and other
Hmm.
providers. All of them are, but we like to leverage data. So whatever entity we're dealing with, we like to have 3 to 5 years of data. Uh, Data evidence, because looking at things one claim at a time is not giving you any leverage. Okay, you have to look at the really big picture of what
Right.
it, and the only way you get that is having lots of.
So how are you getting in front of hospitals or the decision makers? Like, how are you creating those conversations and those opportunities today?
Great question. So we spent a lot of time developing having an operating system on the inside of a company, as you know, and then converting that system into something that is customer facing is a little bit of a process. And our business model has changed, over the years, like most things. You have in your head that this is going to be it. Everyone's going to love our stuff. It's going to be wonderful. We're initially, uh, uh, initially our customer was going to be revenue cycle directors, our initial
Hmm.
OVP,
Yeah.
because we thought that they'd be so happy to see that our solution, looking back 3 to 5 years, could have the capability of recapturing revenue that you thought you would never get, because that's what my
Right.
company, we were able to recapture revenue that they weren't able to cover because of our technology. But there's a sensitivity to revenue cycle directors and VPs, and I certainly understand that
Yeah.
someone might perceive of a company like ours all of a sudden starts recapturing revenue from the past. how's that going to, how's that going to make me look like I wasn't doing my
Right.
job?
Yeah.
So we had to really, sort of back up, a big time, back up and say, okay, that product, that solution we still have is not going to be the one we lead with. Uh, I don't think anyone wants to know about the past. So we have now changed our business model to where we have consultants, experts that deliver our solution to the provider, and they don't have to learn our software. I mean, it's about as simple an implementation as you could possibly get. So we really shortened the implementation time frame because now the staff doesn't have to learn new software. It's not down to the user
Yeah.
level anymore. It's a C-suite solution completely. Uh, and we
Right.
deliver the result. So we show them the initial analysis, which is first we enter the contracts into our system, which is our first process. That allows them at least to do comparative analysis. Also, between the contract across their whole enterprise. So if you have a hospital with multiple entities, you can see all your contracts and then start doing really analysis between the terms and conditions of those contracts and all fee schedules related to it, all embedded in the Sapphire's calculation. And then we deliver what we call AI Analyze, and that essentially provides a high-level review of what your revenue cycle situation looks. Really we call it optimizing their NPR, net patient revenue. So they can see like a profile of what it
Right.
looks like,
Yeah.
and then what the opportunity is for them to recapture some of that. And we're really focusing now on those two solutions, along with something we call Scan, which which on the fly audits contract for compliance and certain kinds of behavior, non-compliance. On every single bill that's submitted to the insurance company after it's submitted. So we can check these challenges before we do it. So we do a massive,
Hmm.
and we do massive appeals on the fly, which still using 3 to 5 years of data. So we still need that because that's the evidence. And that changes, again, the dynamic. So reaching those customers now, to answer your question directly, we use consultants to already have existing relationships
Right.
providers, because it is hard to roll in there and get a CEO or CFO's attention. You got a lot of competing uh, things that you're worried about. And the lifespan of most CFOs in this environment is about 2 years. So they don't have a lot of time to figure out what's going on with their revenue cycle. So our strategy now is to give them a solution that isn't going to upset their revenue cycle people, but really immediately benefit on ROI on stopping the bleed. So that's sort of what our strategy is now. And COVID was obviously a black
Yeah.
hole, I think, for everybody. No
Right.
one was looking
Yeah.
to anyone, so didn't predict that. So that was a whole like 2.5 year period of time that we really spent a lot of time just refining our software. AI, which is part of our original strategy, started getting so much better, and we started really bolting that into some of the things we're doing with our solution.
So you're using mainly consultants to get in front of the right people at the right time.
That's,
So
that's correct.
have you tried any larger scale reach outs through, emails or other ways to connect with a lot more people on a larger scale?
That's a good question. We have attempted to do this. The interest, for example, on the email campaigns and LinkedIn, type strategies, you do get a lot of interest, but the question is not the interest, it's the action. So,
Hmm.
whereas we would get, uh, you could see the hit rates and see that CFOs in your target audience were sort of opening the email or checking the message, but it
Right.
wasn't turning over into sales. Uh, and we did address the pain points. So we focused on the fact that it
Hmm.
wasn't a 60 or 90-day implementation time frame, so that's not going to be big. We don't require integration with your software that you're currently using, so that's going to make the IT guys happy. They don't have to learn a
Right.
new piece of software where, with all the other software they have to learn, which no one likes to really learn anything new. So, and we're going to deliver the solution to you like a present, wrapped up, and then we're going to, solve problems. So it was pretty compelling in terms of what our story was.
Yeah.
But again, it's a relationship business, and I think healthcare is one of those last bastions of relationship businesses where uh, that matters. And you almost have to have a relationship with them to get through all the noise and all the other companies certainly that are trying to get their attention.
I always like asking this question, like if you could wave your little magic wand and fix one part of your workflow or process, which part do you think you would address in order to allow you to experience kind of have more conversations leading to more growth?
Okay, let me make sure I understand your question. So I like the magic wand. Oh, if you have one, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to get
We'll
one.
pretend. Yeah, it's really
So
just about like where, like in your process, do you feel like there's a point along that process where there's a bit of a bottleneck, or like if you could figure out a way to get through that, it would, and the funnel would just flow more smoothly.
I think for me, if I could have a magic wand, I'd like to do something like this, where you could have or a forum of some sort, which we're talking about putting together, where you can really have all the parties on the table, not just
Hmm.
the provider, but also the payer. So because there are areas where Sapphire brings those together, and that is, as far as the contract, audit compliance, negotiation piece of it, uh, and really explain what the opportunity is, because it's not that
Right.
hard. I mean, it's sort of an obvious scenario that everyone understands is horrible and messed up. It's just that, how do you get someone away from the day-to-day grind of just trying to stay in business, to
Right.
be able to hear something that is going to really make their job so much easier, so they can spend more of their energy allocating that additional funding towards, patient care. So that's if I had a magic wand, that's what I do. Just eliminate all the distractions, have them in a room, let them hear. If you can't explain what you're doing in 30 minutes, then you probably don't shouldn't be in the room. And just tell them, how this can impact their facility and
Right.
make their lives, and the patient's life so much better.
Have you tried? I've got to curious when you mentioned that. Have you tried through like video production or like content creation, any way to get the word out to those, the right people at the right time?
We're just now, eventually you're talking about that. We're just now getting into the mode. We're starting to create content, not only for distribution uh, to our ultimate customers, but
Hmm.
also to the patient. Because the
Yeah.
patient, I found out when I, previous entity, they have a lot of power. They do, but they don't know where to direct it. And I
Mm.
think every patient out there, or potential patients, since we're all potential patients, at some point
Yep.
we're going to be connected to the healthcare system
Yeah.
one way or the
Yeah.
other. And everyone, I don't care what position you're in a hospital. I mean, you're all potential patients, and you have family members that are dealing with the healthcare system we have. So we want to try to begin creating a community, uh, and organically, uh, that's targeted towards patients, just to increase awareness of
Hmm.
what some of those challenges are, and what you might be able to collectively do about them. And that's pretty low hanging fruit, so to speak. It's not that hard to do. It's a hot button for a lot of patients who are going through a lot of not only physical consequences and challenges, but financial consequences. 67%
Yeah.
of all bankruptcies relate to medical debt. So
Right.
this is a big issue. And then there's the primary care physicians. That's another piece, because you refer patients to the various providers that you are contracted with within whatever network you belong to. And one of the things that Sapphire is doing, we call it curing the patient, but really what it is a way of using the data that we already have access to design the pathway and look for outliers. and talk about that a little bit later, maybe offline. That's one of our secret sauce. But really to address the challenge that most primary care physicians are having, which is bandwidth, and they
Right.
just don't have any. So, and it's not going to get any better. They can look down the tunnel and they can see this situation is not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. So we have our third phase in our solution. I think I mentioned it before we got on the call. Is really addressing that challenge because it has to be addressed in a big way. And I think AI has a really big play in that area.
I was kind of wondering about the primary care space. That's where I come from. I'm an
Right.
internist, primary care physician. Um, kind of basically the chief medical officer of a primary care organization now. Um, do you feel like that even larger primary care organizations, do they have the ability to like even understand what it is that you bring to the table? And they probably can understand it, but like even take action upon fixing this issue for them because if they can fix this issue, it would address so much of their challenges.
Um, Great question. The primary care physician is sort of in the same mode that the C-suite is in. You're sort of like in
Yeah,
emergency mode.
all the
Okay, and you have
time. Yeah,
you have tons of companies approaching you. We're going to help your revenue. We're going to help your revenue, and we're going to help your revenue. And that's certainly important that you do that. But ultimately, we feel that the revenue side is a symptom of a bigger problem. So the trick is,
hmm
how do you get primary care physicians to understand that and unite around that concept? Is that right now you're slaves to a system that doesn't work.
right. Yeah,
And everyone's I call it like, I never really liked that concept thinking out of the box because what if the box isn't a box anymore? Maybe it's duct tape and the box isn't a box, it's just a bunch of duct tape. So how can you fix a box that isn't even a box anymore? You're going to have to just think, forget it, the box. The box is not working. You got to think something else is going to be better. And
right.
our larger goal is if we can get primary care physicians around the idea that they can have influence on the business model that currently drives healthcare, and
hmm
you have those discussions, you have so much power as a primary care physician. I mean, hospitals are buying primary care practices like there's no tomorrow. Offering incentives. Insurance companies are trying to figure out a way to
Yep.
give you guys incentives, and everyone, can you make our patients healthier and the whole nine yards. There's all kinds of companies out there trying to help primary care physicians design these optimum patient pathways, and okay, you can
Right.
save time. This is the pathway you should take, and all that. Um, all that stuff is great, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. But the bottom line is the system is okay. So
hmm
how do you fix the system that
Right.
obviously is not working on any level? And so what we'd like to do at Sapphire is sort of like have discussions like this with primary care physicians and talk about how Sapphire thinks we can address this issue, because we're going to be able to really, this is our vision, uh, alter the business model of how hospitals are compensated so that everyone's interest, the patient, the payer, and the provider are all aligned. And it might seem like I'm saying that and it sounds like a fantasy situation. Yeah, Walter, what do
Yeah.
you're in California, so what's happening with you over there? Uh, but I can't disclose all the things we're obviously doing on this podcast. But all I can say is that it relates to getting primary care physicians to uh, come together and change the power dynamics that currently
Yeah.
exist, and having them believe that in mass, as a collective, they can actually do that because you really do control the money. Um, And so if we can help primary care physicians understand, if they jump on board with something that is going to alter the revenue model that currently drives healthcare, I'm not just talking about the things that they're trying to do with contracts and other things. So, doctor, okay, if you reduce costs, we'll give you the same amount of money. All that stuff. I mean, all those different tactics that are. They're just not going to. It's not going to.
Right.
It hasn't worked, right? Has it worked for you?
Yeah.
So, so, so all that is, it hasn't worked. So we think we found something that is so obvious. I can't even tell you on this podcast that would really change the whole dynamic. I mean, can you imagine just focusing on patient care and not having to worry about getting paid by
Yeah. Crazy, huh?
and
You
then
know,
and then even have time
yeah,
to spend with your family because these
exactly.
yeah. I mean, isn't that what you really want? Patients to be healthy. You be able to have time for your family and not stress out about the stuff you're thinking about right now. And then, if I told you what it is, you'd say it's so obvious. I can't believe people are doing
Well, I have to say you've intrigued me. So, since we're kind of still, we're in this future state, and like if you were to look out 12 months, um, and you said we absolutely nailed it, what does 12 months look like uh, from that perspective, where you feel like, yeah, we've nailed it, like we got this.
And that is what, as an entrepreneur yourself, that would be the holy grail that
Yeah.
everyone says, okay, Walter, you're not crazy. This is really something that's going to be great. And we take off. We're able to offer this solution and to really ultimately primary care physicians. And uh, they'd be really able to focus on patient care. And it would impact the providers, all providers along continuum of care. But the primary care physicians have to be, in my opinion, for this part of the solution, have to be really, the driver, of it. And they have to work,
Yeah.
collectively to make it happen, which isn't that hard because you're all in the same pot, bubbling, right? You
Right. Yeah.
so you all experience the same pain, and so that's what we'd like to say. If we can just get it out, and the primary care physicians are totally on board, we create this environment which we think is possible, where you have visibility, transparency, and obviously revenue integrity, but more importantly, a new business model for healthcare providers, where the focus shifts back to patient care. Uh, we think that would be a pretty exciting outcome, for us. And I mean, you're a patient, I'm a patient, we're all patients, and
Yeah.
I would be happy as well as a patient.
I would say that's definitely holy grail right there. You nail that, and
Yeah,
you've done your job
yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Um, kind of curious to know is that what do you feel like? We kind of addressed this a little bit, but I'm just curious along the way of your kind of end-to-end process. Like, where do you feel like your biggest challenge is in, is it getting in front of the right people, or is it converting those people, or is it telling your story, or like,
Part you're saying is that telling the story and getting in front of the right people. I mean, that's the. I mean, I think every entrepreneur, if you ask them that question, those are the things that are the biggest challenge. And
yeah.
how do you carve out time with individuals that are really, really, really busy and have a lot of other content things that are equally important, pressing. I mean, all kinds. I mean, the CEO's life is of any company, frankly, is a thankless job to a certain degree. Um, but a hospital has that overlay, having to deal with patients and
Hmm.
consequences that can happen in the healthcare system, liability and all that goes along with it. So that would be our biggest challenge, and figuring out that piece. How do you get in front of your customers and
Yeah.
tell them the story that
Right.
you have is what the challenge is. And so we're I mean, let me tell you, I don't have all the answers to that. If I did,
Yeah.
we would be
Well,
already 12 months down the line.
yeah.
Okay, everything would be great. So
Well, you
we've
have
got some
I
ideas.
mean,
I'm open to all ideas. One thing when you learn to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to have all the answers because someone's probably
yeah.
already figured it out. So
You
so
definitely have a tough audience, right? Just
right.
because of the bandwidth and the chaos that swirls in their worlds, and I get it. But I do feel like there's like if you have such a powerful message, you're addressing an issue that is such a challenge for everyone from the primary care provider to the hospital, like and end to end, that when you get there and you're telling that, it just feels like a no-brainer, but you got to
Well,
get there.
that's what we hope. What we're hoping
Yeah,
to have happen. If there's any CFOs out there on your podcast or CFOs watching this or payer contracting management folks, what we want to have happen is that one entrepreneurial CFO or CEO or payer contracting guy will say, hey, I am not happy. Okay, what's happening right now? I don't look forward to coming to work every day at all. It's just a whole series of bad. And I want to uh, give this company an opportunity to see if they can make my life. And
right,
all we need is one. If we have one hospital that ideally an integrated system, we have one hospital that's willing to take a very low risk, high ROI opportunity. Uh, and then that's it. I mean, really, and this the environment is so um, compacted. You know, everyone goes to the same meetings. They all have the same complaints. They all deal with the same issues. I mean,
right.
and so we all
Yeah,
kind of, in 1 degree of separation, all know each other. So once you get an entrepreneurial, CFO or CEO that says, okay, look, this what we've done in the past. I say, I came up with this quote that change occurs when the consequences of doing nothing are greater than the consequences of
right.
doing something
Yeah,
different. And so
yeah.
we want someone is at that stage. And right now, I think the timing is good because things are as bad as it's ever been. There's no horizon of where it's going to get better. Uh, we hope that CFO or CEO or payer contracting manager person would be interested in, okay, it sounds pretty simple to us. Why not? Let's test
Hmm.
it out and see what happens.
Well, I think that that's it right there, is that when you can find, and there, I have some kind of thoughts swirling around my head that we can talk about later. When you can find the way to get that, like get in front of those people at scale, like I think that, it could be a game changer.
It would be exciting and, something I think would change everything. And it,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. I so appreciate how openly you've shared your journey, the challenges, the future state, the holy grail. All of that is so inspiring for others to know that, they're not alone out there in their own journey. So I really appreciate you sharing Sapphire's journey, your own journey, and like, what would you say to people who have heard the podcast, they want to reach out to you, learn more about Sapphire and your organization? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, everyone disclose their personal cell phone number nowadays. So,
That'll work.
yeah, seriously, there's no like phone systems that people use. So I can be reached obviously on my cell phone 310-927-3434. Pretty easy number to remember. Or you can reach me through LinkedIn. You can connect me that way. And my email address is Walter at sapphirehealthcare.ai. And
Just
if anyone's
Walter at
curious,
Sapphire Healthcare AI. Yep. Okay.
correct.
Well, fantastic. Thank you again for doing this. I so enjoyed the conversation.